Any questions about last week before we jump into tonight's topic?
Lynn, do you mind if I make a quick comment regarding
Yes,
our conversation last week? This is Muriel, by
sure.
the way. Lynn and I had a conversation afterward, and she brought up an excellent point. We were talking about fire ant recipes last week, and I told you my favorite one. And one thing I kind of wanted to bring home that she pointed out is
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
somebody needs to mute themselves, please. Anyway, when we're talking amongst ourselves as master gardeners, there is no problem having somebody say, "Hey, Brandon, what do you use for this?" And Shirley, I'm gonna pick. I loved your idea on this and this and this. So when I was talking to you last week, I was telling you about my favorite. If I am talking to the public, though, it's a different story. I need to say, these are the solutions, that Texas A&M has, and here's the page where you can find all the things. So I appreciate Lynn bringing that up, because I think that's important for you guys to know as well. So Lynn, thank you for pointing that out, and I thought that was something that they needed to be aware of too.
Very good. Okay. Well then, Bill, I'm going to give it to you and fill us in on all things weed.
I think you're muted, Bill.
Yep, you are, Bill.
Well, I'm having a great time talking to myself. I don't know what y'all's problem is. Hey, Bill, what do you think about this? Well, I'm not really sure. Let me think about it. All right, I'm with you now. Thank you for pointing that out. Actually, I was doing a little ventriloquism, just seeing if you were paying attention. So thank you. All right, let me try to get my screens going here. Whoa, get me sick. All right, here we go. Let me get rid of this thing that annoys me. Winning the war on weeds. Here is this is turfgrass weeds. We're going to talk about a variety of weeds. And this is one that's going to start popping up pretty soon. This is a Poa annua, and the little, it buries itself in the turf grass. Some of this we've seen before, but we'll go through it when we talked about turf grass. We'll go through this again. Skip Richter, who is David's counterpart in Houston, Texas, who's retired, says that where his sun hits the soil, nature plants a weed. So technically, a weed is, as you heard Dr. Rector pronounce rather loudly, a weed is any plant growing where the gardener does not want it to grow. And so we're trying to go from weed control to weed management. We're going to try to prevent it first. Eradication, that can't be done. Weeds just are. It's a matter of trying to suppress it or control them the best we can. The wind is now coming from the northwest and the north, which means all those weeds in the hill country, along with some of the cedar, are going to start blowing their way into our area. We've had the southeast breezes, which have been bringing weeds off of the Gulf coastal plains. You can't stop that. Right down the point where you can't see, but right down over here, my neighbor put down some barrier and a bunch of rocks, and she's got a bunch of weeds growing in there because they fly in, birds drop them in there, animals drop them in there. So we really can't eradicate weeds. We can try to control them the best we can. And it started back in the 1960s. We used a lot of chemicals back then that were not really very healthy or very helpful. And they found that some of the insects were becoming relatively immune because they just sort of evolved. The ones who survived dusting like this had an immunity to it. And so they came up with integrative pest management, which is a holistic approach to it, as to let's just spray something and hope that it kills it. Then in the 1970s, I was adapted to integrated weed management because some weeds were just not being killed by the chemicals that we had. So this is adapted um, from the pest control people. And the easiest thing is prevention, and then eventually we have to get to intervention. And so there are 4 steps in this: prevention, cultural, mechanical, and finally the last thing will be chemical. Uh, Usually that's the first thing people want to grab, and it's quick and it's easy, but it's not always going to be effective because the weeds will come back. So the first line of defense is clean tools. And it doesn't seem practical, and I've wondered about this, and David's alluded to it. When these people have these lawn services, they don't wash their lawnmower between clients, and so that is a possible method of moving weeds around. I recently did my son's yard up in Austin because he and his family went on an extended vacation, and I was really leery of it because I know what his lawn looks like. When I came home, I almost used Clorox on my lawnmower because I just was afraid of what I was going to bring into my lawn. So the first line of defense in any type of weed control is to make sure the tools are clean, make sure the lawnmower is clean, the grass catcher is clean as much as possible. If we bring in compost, we want it to be weed free. Um, when you buy compost in the bulk yards, even if it's $15 or if it's $50, a lot of it's just good luck because I mean stuff gets in there. Ideally, in composting, the temperatures in the compost pile would have reached 160, which kills the weed seeds, but sometimes that doesn't happen. If you're anywhere near my age, and I'll be 40 on my next birthday, we used to buy soil through these things called the one ads. And they would bring soil, we'd buy a load of dirt every 3 or 4 years, and they'd drop it in our lawn because it said river dirt or it said farm. We have no idea where they got it. That's just what they put in the newspaper. So we bought it and we spread over our lawn. We did it every 3 to 5 years because the years in between, we are picking weeds out of that thing and picking rocks out of that thing. So again, prevention is the first thing. Make sure your tools are clean, especially lawnmowers. Um, if you're going to add compost to soil, make sure it's weed free. Buy from reputable places. I'm sure somebody sells something over the internet, but I'd go to one of the bulk places in town. New Earth is on the far east side of Bear County, and they supply Buckhorn. I think they supply Site One. I'm not sure. Burning Bush off 1560, Gardenville. Those are the places that are really. And there's one more, Atlas, I think, over on the southwest side. Very reputable place. If you buy something just off the internet or off some chat room, I mean, good luck. And then your shadow is your best defense, and that's sort of a takeoff of Dr. Kottner, which is a vegetable A&M god from past. And his expression was, "Your shadow is your best friend in the garden." And here, your shadow is your best defense. That means you're out in the garden. We are aspiring to be masters of the garden. So that means if you have turf grass, you're out in your turf grass and you're looking at it. You're looking for the weeds that are going to start germinating this time of year. Okay, so the prevention is the very first step. Can you prevent weeds from coming in by your own doing? You can't stop the wind from blowing things in, but can you, at least through our own human activity, can we prevent the issue? Cultural is building a very strong defense. And one thing which we've really harped on here is good, deep, well-amended soil. But keep in mind that the soil in between the 410s is really some of it is deep. It's north of 1604, out Bandera, out 281, where it really starts getting thin. But a lot of the soil really is pretty decent. And I know in parts of the older parts of San Antonio, where I grew up, over on the west side, the soil's deep because we kept putting on heavily weeded dirt back then. But having good soil that if we can get it 4 to 6 inches deep, um, and then amended with compost, we need to break that clay soil up because the weeds will put out 10,000 seeds, and it only takes one or two to get inside of that clay soil, become established there, and it'll spread all over the place. When it comes to turf grass, proper mowing height, it really cannot be stressed enough. And this goes to me again. I told you I did my son's lawn, and it's about half weeds, half Bermuda grass. And so I did it because, like I said, they're on extended vacation. So I came home and I mowed my front yard, which is a beautiful thick Bermuda St. Augustine, but I forgot to raise the lawnmower height, and I scalped it, and it has not recovered. I was going to show you two next week and under plant pathology and have you figure out what happened. But proper mowing height is so important, and I need to check that area for weeds because, like I said, I wasn't thinking. I just ran over. I just started mowing, and I thought I'm putting out a lot of grass around here. And then I thought, oh man, this thing is set on 2 inches, and I'm usually at 3.5 inches. And so when we mow incorrectly, St. Augustine must be mowed high, and it will shade out for the most part the weeds, except Poa annua will sneak in there. Or if we mow Zoysia and Bermuda down low, it'll develop that thick root mat, that matting of roots. It'll help squeeze out the seeds. And then watering optimally. We sprinklers are a great way to water, but keep in mind that when we water our turf grass or our vegetable gardens with sprinklers or our flower beds with sprinklers, every weed seed is also being watered. And so we may be proud of ourselves because we carefully put our timer on for 30 minutes, and the beds got half an inch of water, but so did the seeds, weed seeds. Correctly correctly at the right time of year. And the weed and feed, I think I get the weed and feed traditionally is put early like a January, about February, March. But our turf grass down here is still dormant. And so what we're doing is we're feeding the weeds. And that's why the joke is weed and feed basically feeds the weeds. So very correctly fertilizing right time of year. This time of year, um, in any bed, it's going to be a quick release fertilizer because you've got from the 9th of October to maybe the 9th of December. Maybe we'll get a freeze by then. So we have a short period. So we don't need an extended period of slow release fertilizer. So what happens is we fertilize incorrectly at the wrong time of year, and our plants are dying or dormant, and the weeds saying, hey, thank you very much. I'm trying to grow, and you gave me some juice here. Selection of plants, and we'll get to that a little bit. Spacing of plants, and then mulch. Mulch helps stops the sun from getting to the weed seed. So here I kind of went through this already, and we've seen this before. So drip versus sprinkler versus hand watering. So I kind of ran a simulation through a program. A 30-foot drip system with 1 gallon emitters every foot. On for 45 minutes, we'll use about 22 gallons of water. A sprinkler on for 45 minutes will we'll use about 200 gallons of water. And hand watering, we use 22 gallons in simply a matter of 3 to 4 minutes. So it's really watering as correctly as possible. Drip is the best way to minimize watering weeds, but also watering the rest of our plants. So we need to be so careful about our use of water. And again, sprinklers are great. I mean, I used mine this morning, and I just kept thinking about those bare spots where I scalp the grass, and I need to go out there and check. Are there weeds that are going to start growing in that area? Because I need to get them as soon as I can. Talked about a little bit. It's a matter of, this is geared toward turf grass, but it applies to ornamentals and vegetable beds. We need to make sure that we fertilize at the correct time when the plants need it. And kind of a side note on I have oak trees down here. If you read the instructions on weed and feed, and I was actually researching this because as Kristen talked about, little nerdy geeks, that's kind of me in gardening. And I researched the weed and feed. There are actually two formulations, and that's for us something that we should be aware of. There's a northern formulation of weed and feed, and there's a southern formulation of weed and feed. And the southern formulation is trying to be aware of tree canopies, but even still, I think it's azartane or something like that. It's a chemical in there that can damage trees. So when people put down their weed and feed, they think they're killing the weeds, but they may also be affecting the health of their trees. Normally, maybe trees can deal with the weed part of the product, but when we had that snow a few years ago and the trees were stressed, and a couple of years later we had 50 or 60 days of 100-degree temperatures, the trees are even more stressed. This past year, we had a lot of rain. Well, I think it was last year, we had a lot of rain. And all of a sudden, the spigot stopped, and the trees had all this growth, and the temperatures were hot, and the water was non-existent. And they started dropping all their leaves. Well, if you've been putting weed and feed down, those little things make a difference in a tree, and that goes to plant pathology, which we talked about yesterday, and we'll talk a little bit more at the beginning of the class next week. And then just applying too much fertilizer. We're fertilizing the plants, but as plants, the reason David has a 3-1-2, as they mentioned in one of the lectures, 3 means the plant is 3% nitrogen, 1 part phosphorus, and 2 parts potassium. Well, that may also apply to the weeds. I don't know for sure, but that if it applies to the weeds, then when we put down our 3-1-2 or 1959 or whatever, we are also fertilizing the weeds. And if we over fertilize and our plants don't want them, the weeds may be saying, thank you very much. Okay, so we've been through plant selection any number of times. The Texas superstars, some of these plants are interesting, kind of a side note. The BHN 968 tomato is a cherry tomato. I don't remember what the B and H are, but the N means it is nematode resistant. So when you heard the plant pathologist, Dr. Cochran, talking about nematodes being a problem, the BHN is a modified plant that is not susceptible to nematode damage. Kind of a side. Then well-adapted plants and the native plants, these are plants that are used to growing here. They don't need excessive amount of water. They don't need excessive amount of fertilizer. And so we're not watering and fertilizing the weeds. And this time of year, for example, the well-adapted plants, you have your Mexican mint marigolds and your Copper Canyon daisies are coming into bloom. And they don't need water and they don't need fertilizer. Just they'll be fine. Okay, so mulch. Mulch prevents the weeds from growing roots in our heavy clay soil, and that's the challenge with our clay soil. It's clumpy, and weeds it may only, out of 10,000 seeds, it may only take 3 or 4, and they get their roots into those clumps of clay, and we go to pull them, and they break off, and the weed continues to grow. But what the mulch does is it's just layers. I'm randomly in the back of my backyard, and I'm putting now 4 to 6 inches of mulch, which is a lot, but I know it's going to compress to 2 to 3 inches. But if you've got 6 inches of 6 inches of mulch there, a weed is not going to be able to really do much. If a weed does grow there, it's very simple to pull out because it can't get into the clay soil. Another thing about having the mulch there is it's less likely for erosion, which is a problem because weeds will grow in rocks. It's a fascinating thing around the corner of my house. My neighbor has about 8 terneras. They're a beautiful yellow flower, and they're growing in the rock. And weeds will do the same thing. They will grow in the rock. And so if we can keep mulch covering the soil, then it protects the soil from eroding, and it does not give the weeds a good place to lock in. So we did prevention, which is, again, that's us, make sure our tools are clean. Cultural, we just went through, and so now mechanical. And I've had people ask me, what do I do? I have a yard full of weeds. Well, sometimes you just pull them. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. The gardens that I work up here, 1604 on Braun Road. I'm building a wine garden, and right now I'm having to pull the. It's about a 15 by 15 area, and I'll go up in the morning sometimes around 6 o'clock, and I've got my little pickaxe like thing, and I'm just digging up weeds, and it's hand by hand, and I get the little. We used to call them battle axes when I was a kid. Those little sticker thingies, and they're in my hand, and they're in my clothes, but sometimes you just got to pull them. There's not much else to do about them unless you want to jump immediately to the spray. And my pickaxe, I have to get the shovel out because some of those roots are they've got that's how come they survive. We pull them, they break off, and then a couple weeks later they pop back up again, and we kind of wonder, well, how did that happen? So sometimes, and I realize it is just a pain in the neck, but sometimes you just sit down and you pull weeds. Now, if you're on the freaky side like me, then you sit down in the weeds and go, well, this is a fascinating weed. What kind it is? So you pull out your little Google lens, start pictures of it. And while I'm sitting there getting ready to destroy the little sucker, I'm reading about the weed, the Latin name. Why are they calling it that particular weed? I wonder how come it got this little cute little colloquial name. And then I just rip the guy out of the ground and I throw it away and not worry about it. But mechanical is it's a hands-on thing. You just got to get down there and you've got to pull it. So you make sure your tools are clean. You've done your best culturally, but sometimes weeds just get in there. And this flower bed, this wildflower area that I'm developing, it's going to be an ongoing battle because the area is just soil. I don't have grass growing there. I have some anchor plants, which are well adapted perennials, some Texas superstars I have there so that when the wildflowers die, you still have color there. But I know, as Skip Richter said, where sun hits the soil, nature plants. I know that's going to be an ongoing battle. I'm willing to do that because next March, that area is going to be absolutely magnificent with wildflowers and bluebonnets because I learned what Jim Thomas did at Wild Seed Farm, and I'm going to copy it. Um, if nothing else, mow the weeds. Do not let them seed. And right now, the one we have to watch for against that Poa annua has little white tips there. You just keep them mowed. Keep them mowed. The trick on weeds is in the mechanical sense is do not let them go to seed because if they have seeds and you hit them with that lawnmower, poof, man, it's just gone all over the place, and you just lost that battle. Another mechanical way some people do it is they use weed barriers. Some of them work, some of them don't work. Sometimes the weeds want to find a way, they're going to find the edge of the barrier and they're going to grow there. Some weeds can go through or do grow through the barrier. And the university says perennial weeds that penetrate cloth can almost become impossible to remove because that cloth is now giving them protection. It's a cheap and easy thing. I know landscapers like it because it's easy. Just put down the barrier, put the stakes down, and put your stuff on top of it. Sometimes they'll spray the weeds underneath, then they'll put the barrier on. But as it says here, sometimes they do degrade over time, and some weeds will work their way through it. So it's not like you can put the barrier down and man, all my problems are gone. They're not gone. That's still something you have to keep up with. Another way people prepare their soil, if they have a large area of weeds, is they use solarization. And so what they'll do is they'll moisten the area because you want that water and that humidity, and you cover it with a clear, transparent polyethylene plastic. That should be say sheet. I don't know why I say she. I don't know. Polyethylene is gender neutral, so I'm not where that came from. And you have to seal the edges. And it says here you have to leave it in place at least 4 to 6 weeks. It's not something you do overnight. What you need is you need the sun's rays to hit that polyethylene and get that humidity and just make it intolerable for weed seeds or weeds to survive. Sort of like when I mentioned compost gets it like 106 days, most of the seeds or all the seeds. You're doing something similar here. And as you can see, wherever my pencil is, you can see that There it is. You see, they've had to seal the edges. So here you have a piece of wood. They're gonna have something sealing the four edges. You want that thing airtight so that the heat and the moisture just absolutely destroy anything in there. Solarization works best on heavy soils that can hold moisture, and that's us because we have that really heavy clay soil. It might have limited success on nut sedge. As I researched it, the suggestion was that a lot of weeds live in the top part of the soil, but the nut sedge has that which is below the soil, and it could be that the solarization, the heat doesn't get deeply enough to hit that nut under that's in the ground. And that's really the challenge on nutsedge is because you've got to get a trowel or a shovel or something. You've got to dig down and pull that thing out. And this place I'm working, this garden's got them in clumps, and so I just have to get a shovel and maybe loosen up a 3 foot by 3 foot or 2 foot 2 by 2 foot area, and I'll just start pulling them out, and they're all connected because they grow through rhizomes, I guess. So, but mechanical is another way of solarizing. So you can put up a weed barrier. You can try the solarization. It depends on how much of your yard that you want to try this with. So we've done prevention, again, clean tools, cultural, mechanical. You can use pulling them or put down some sort of barrier, or you can do the solarization. And finally, chemical. And that's why this is called integrative. This is a total approach to attacking weeds. If you've done your homework here, it says my internet connection's unstable, so I apologize for that. If you've done your homework and you've done as much prevention, cultural, mechanical as possible, hopefully the weeds are very minimal by now when you start looking at chemical. There are pre-emergence herbicides which stop seeds from even germinating, and that's really as far as a chemical application, that's the best time to stop weeds is when they're in the germinating process, when they go through the seeds are forming. And we've been through how things start from seeds, a little embryo, and the embryo gets fed and it starts putting out radicals and puts out cotyledons. And so what herbicides do is they get in there and they that reproduction cycle. Once they have, it gets a little bit more difficult, but those are post-emergent. They have already emerged. There are selective herbicides that kill specific weeds without harming desired plants. So with you can use something like sedge hammer, sedge killer, something like that has the word sedge in it. And something in the reproductive cycle of a sedge, the chemical gets in there and messes with it so that it just messes the whole thing up and it kills it. The non-selective herbicides, which we say is Roundup, but that's not really accurate anymore. It's a challenge for us as master gardeners to say we can use Roundup because the joke is that Roundup doesn't have Roundup in it anymore. They have Roundup that is safe for St. Augustine. I'm guessing because the lawsuits, they've changed the chemicals in some of the Roundup. So Roundup doesn't do what it used to. I think it's glyphosate is the active ingredient that does the killing, but they're non-selective. They will kill anything and everything. So if you've got a weed in the middle of your beautiful turf grass and you spray it with eraser or some version of Roundup, then you're going to kill absolutely everything. That's going to go down into the roots of the plants. And that area may take a long time to recover. What you can do with things like Roundup or erasers, another one is you can dab it. If you want to get really picky, you can go out there with like a Q-tip or some sort of sponge, and you can dab the leaves of that particular weed. If you're going to go to that extent, then it's a lot easier to get a trowel and dig the thing up. Okay, so organic versus synthetic. We had a little bit of conversation about this before. Organic weed killers almost entirely use some sort of acidic compounds, whether it's vinegar or something along that line. And what they do is they burn everything. They burn what they touch. And since we're master gardeners and we like to know the ins and outs, there's a cuticle on the outside of the leaf that protects the leaf from the elements. Of what the acid does is it burns away that cuticle, and the plant is exposed to the elements and it dies. But to my knowledge, and all the research I've done, the organic based weed killers will not go down. The plant does not absorb it down into the body of the plant, into the roots or whatever. And so it says it's effective for young annual weeds, but only temporary control for perennial weeds. The annual weeds are like Poa annua, but again, organic does not always mean safe. So if you have your bottle full of your vinegar homemade recipe, and you want to start squirting that Poa annua, it's non-selective. That means it's going to also burn the cuticles of the Bermuda grass and of the St. Augustine grass, because all it does is it just kind of burns the leaves. So organic will work in some situations, but it won't kill the entire weed, and it can possibly kill the other things around it. Synthetic weed killers, like has glyphosate, um, they are designed so that the leaf absorbs it and takes it through the entire plant vascular system, which we covered in chapter 3, I think it was. The phloem takes nutrients and water up and down, so the leaf absorbs the glyphosate, and it moves it through the vascular system. It gets into the roots, and it gets into the shoots, and into the flowers, and the fruits, and so it kills the entire plant and prevents it from further growing. All right, so a pre-emergent is, and they have, I'm trying to remember the name of it, Shield, something about Shield is a pre-emergent for the lawn. And the way that works is it's spread on the lawn before or right before the weeds start to germinate. And as I said, what it does is it stops the weeds from germinating. It gets into the reproductive parts of it. Pre-emergents are for preventing future weeds, but they don't kill already existing ones, because the already existing ones don't have the seed reproduction. So the active way of killing the weeds is not going to happen once they already exist. So post-emergent is it says for something that's already there. Dandelions, you finally see them. Your Poa annua is there, or the thistles growing right where you don't want it. And a systemic weed killer is absorbed by the leaves and transported throughout the plant. We know that's through translocation, because you're master gardeners, you know that. Whereas a contact weed killer only kills parts of the plants that is touched by the product. So here is an example. I'm not sure where I got this picture from, but the contact will touch whatever it touches, that will get burned. This down here is fine, because the acid-based, let's say in this case organic, um, material did not get down into this area. So this is protected, and it'll start growing all over again. But the way systemics are working is they are absorbed by the leaves, and they're transported down into the roots and throughout the plant. And that's how it kills everything that it comes in contact with. All right, so you have selective herbicides. They are designed to kill a specific weed. So as I said before, sedge hammer, sedge killer will take care of sedges. It will not affect grassy weeds. It will not affect broadleaf weeds. So if you have a sedge killer, then it's not going to touch this Poa annua, going to affect it at all. If you have dandelions, if you got thistles, if you got the little suckers, that stick to your clothes, those little stickers that get in your hand and they hurt, it's not going to affect them. If you have a broadleaf weed killer, it's not going to affect the nut sedge and the purple sedge, because they are functionally different inside, which goes back to the monocot dicot conversation we had a long time ago. And so it's important for us to be able to identify the type of weeds, which is why if you get weird and geeky like me, you sit there and you look at the weed. Is this a monocot or is it a weed? Let me get out my little Google lens, take a picture of it, and I'm sitting out. Nobody's bothering me because it's 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I get to read about the weeds that I'm pulling up. And you become a little bit more knowledgeable. Learn the certain weeds only well, except for the ones that kill everything, will respond only to certain um, weed killers. So here are some of the leaves. And some of these we went through last time. Everybody's favorites the dandelion, and this is a thistle. This is a really fun one. The thistles, I think the ones that don't have the sharp edges, but the dandelions, one of the really are kind of sharp and they kind of dig into your hand. And you wear gloves. This is your yellow sedge and your nut and your purple nut sedge, and this is the big one that we deal with. The grassy weeds. There are other grassy weeds. Johnson grass is a grassy weed. Dallas grass is a grassy weed. And some places have those. And really on those, it's just, for me, it's just a matter of digging up the best I can. And now when you do that, you're going to have that big empty place of soil. And so that's either where you start making your flower bed, ornamental bed, or if you're doing grass, you go to a grass dealer and you say, I just need one piece or two pieces, and they'll sell it to you. And you amend that soil and you put your grass down in that empty spot right there. So these are significant things. And one kind of little detail, this is Johnson grass. It's all one word. Dallas grass, just like Bermuda grass is one word, even though spell check, we want to make them two. Technically, they are one word. Okay, so we've been through that. All right, so here's a little bit more explanation for those of you that are still awake. Broadleaf weed killers plant's ability to move nutrients, so it leads to its death. Sedges and grasses do not have the same hormonal system, so they're not affected. Chemicals. So you have to know what kind of weed you have to buy the correct chemical if you are going to use a chemical. Sedge weed killers target the pathways that are essential for sedge growth, but those pathways are different or they're not present in grassy weeds or broadleaf weeds. So a sedge killer is going to be limited what it can do. Grassy weeds, the pre-emergent herbicides creates a chemical barrier that the weeds can't really germinate. The post-emergent herbicides, they're absorbed by the weed's leaves and interrupt its ability to photosynthesize and produce the necessary proteins. We know photosynthesis is where the sun hits the leaf, and that turns into respiration, translocation. Yeah, we remember all that stuff. And so what the grassy weed killers is, it interrupts that photosynthetic process. So each one of these weeds functions a little differently. And that's why it's important that we have some idea about the weeds that we're with, so that if somebody says, here's a picture of the weed in my yard, or somebody says, what chemical would you suggest? Well, I can't suggest a chemical. I need to know what kind of weed that you have growing. So what do you do as a master gardener? Or what I tell people to do is I will tell them to double bag weed, and I'll take it to a nursery and I'll ask them, what kind of weed is this? What do they sell that will kill it? And the reason I put that in there is because these chemicals change from year to year or for every few years. As I said, Roundup isn't really Roundup anymore. It's been so diversified. So you ask the nursery, nursery, this is the plant I'm trying to kill. I need a chemical. What have that will kill this? And then the follow-up, equally as important, is when do I apply this thing? Do I apply it as is this a pre?
Bill, you're frozen if you can hear us. If you can't, I guess you won't know. Bill, are you still there?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, I'm hoping he'll. Bill, if you can hear us, you may want to sign out and sign back in. I'm gonna try to text it. Lynn, do you have any filler?
He may have to go out and come back in. This one I know we have recorded. Ah, he just signed out.
Okay, good.
Give him a minute. This happened last time.
Oh, guy.
I know.
And he's our entertainer. So Lynn and
I
I do
know.
not have the skill set.
Uh, well, let me tell you about the remaining Zooms that are coming up. So next week, you'll have Anna Vogler, and she's going to present on what's in a name. So those of you who struggled with the questions about species versus varieties, Bill, just go ahead and start bringing your stuff back up. She'll be next.
Bill, you're on mute.
It should be on mute. I teach you to read my lips. No new to any. If you're going to use a product and you're going to use in a vegetable bed, it's incredibly important that you read, is that product safe for vegetable gardening? Ornamentals are ornamentals, lawns are lawns. But if you're going to put that in your tomato bed or around carrots, you have to read the product or the person you're speaking with at the nursery. Tell them this goes into where the squash is. Is this safe for vegetables? Because some of them are not, and you need to be aware of that. Same thing if you are dealing with pests. You may have an ant bed. Ant beds are there, but is it safe to use any given product in around vegetables? So that's kind of where I was going to. So, all right.
Bill, you need
Yeah.
to share your slides again, please, sir.
Okay, let me work on that. Okay, what questions do you have
While you're doing that, yeah, start on questions. First of all, Brandon wanted to know, Lynn and I already weighed in what we use, but Brandon was asking what you use to clean your tools.
I use I'm trying to do two things at once. I use a diluted, shoot, I can't remember what it is right now. It might be like a Clorox type thing, but it's a diluted thing. And like a 1 to 10, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
Which is not really helpful. But I'll find that for you and get it out. I think I got the recipe from Iowa, the University of Iowa State, which is their land grant college. I got
Okay.
it from them. It's a 10% solution of something like a Lysol, and I can't remember what else. So I need to get that for you.
Well, it may be, Gail said that Dr. Cochran had recommended a thymol disinfectant, and she was curious about that. And one of the brand names is Thymox. I don't know if it comes under a different brand name. I don't use it, but I don't know if you want to add anything about that or.
Sometimes the Lysol, some people use Lysol spray. You just need something to make sure those tools are disinfected. I think I heard Mark Fanuc said that some of them have a little container and they just dip every time they go from bush to bush. They just dip it in there. So, but I can look for that recipe. But yeah, almost anything will work. That is a disinfectant. There you go.
Okay. Well, I'll ask the rest when you're done.
Okay, I think that's it. What I wanted to finish with is to make sure that whatever chemical you use for whatever reason, if you're going to use it in vegetables, is approved for vegetable use. Not like, well, I think it's okay. If it does not specifically say on the label it's safe for vegetables, then I would not use it on the vegetables. Okay, so that's what I have.
Okay. All right. We had those two questions on disinfection of tools. And Sophia found a site on Travis County, the website that was from Texas A&M about tool care. Now, it does not disinfect, but in terms of tool cleaning, they have a bucket method.
Okay.
tails off. So that was just kind of a nice FYI that she was sharing with everybody.
No, that'd be great.
And that's in the chat for interested. She put the website in the chat. Thank you, Sophia. Bill, this is a question I wasn't sure about either. Karen wanted to know if with barriers, if they release microplastics over time, and I know they're synthetic, but I do not know if they have a plastic component in them or not. Do you have any idea?
No, I don't. And that is such a new thing that we're looking at. I don't know that anybody has done. I don't know. I'll be glad to look it up. But we're finding out about the significance of plastics in bottles and plastics
Yeah.
in brains. We don't know. So that is really a great question, and some PhD student may be working on that right now because I don't know.
Yeah, that was a good question. Oh, you're gonna love this question.
I'm sorry, my internet cable is unstable.
You know what? I keep getting that message as well, and I asked Lynn if it was me, and she said you were having that issue on your end too. So who knows?
Only on hard questions. The easy ones, it's great connection.
JJ wants to know how to get Bermuda grass out of ornamental beds.
JJ, man, you're always the one. It depends. It depends on how bad it is and how big the bed is and how significant the plants are. This time of year, I'm doing a lot of transplanting because the temperatures are decent, and some plants I just want moved. So if one thing I would suggest is if you can take out the plants unless they've been there 20 years and have deep roots, but the plants that you want, put them and they can dig them up with as much soil as possible, put them in pots, and then dig that whole area. And I'm assuming it's not a 50 by 50 yard, but dig that entire area. And for me, it has to be hand pulled. Dr. Stein would tell you to use something like Roundup, and it'll give you mulch, a compost down in the soil. I would move the plants that I want to keep, because this is what I'm doing up at this one property, and I'm digging up all the weeds, and I'm going to put in a compost to the soil to make it rich. And then the plants that I want to keep there, I will replant them in the soil, and then I will watch that real carefully. And the first time I see a sprig of Bermuda come up, I'm going to pull it, and you can do that because you're going to have soil that's going to be 4 to 6 inches deep. It's going to be kind of crumbly, and so pull the plants you want, put them in pots, dig that up, pull out all the Bermuda grass by hand, compost, put the plants back, and watch it real carefully. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay. I think we've already thrown all the other questions at you, unless anybody has something to add. You can raise your hand if you want to. Any other questions? I'm one of these people, and I don't know if there are other people like me, but I find pulling weeds very therapeutic.
I do also. It's now it is. A couple months ago it was
This is a
let
good
them
point.
grow, man. Who cares? Where's the Roundup? But these temperatures now, it's really decent in the morning, and it's as I think the very first time we all got together, I pointed out that there are studies. There's something about getting out in the garden, and even if it's pulling weeds, there's something about getting your hands in the soil, smelling the soil, even feeding the weeds. Except those little battle axe have the little stickers all over. Those aren't so much fun. But just being out there in nature, and sometimes it's a matter of how much are you willing to give up. Sometimes weeds just are, and so yeah, I'll give in some, but this one particular as clean as possible. Wildflower areas that I'm developing, I know the weeds are going to be there, and once those wildflowers start sprouting, the weeds are just going to have to grow, and because I'm not going to dig up the weeds and kill all the wildflowers. So I will do as much as I can now, culturally and mechanically, but once wild seeds start to sprout, I'll just have to wait till they stop blooming next spring.
I'm with you. Rand had a question for you. Rand, if you want to unmute and ask.
Yeah.
Hey,
Bill.
Rand.
Hey, Bill. My question is, For lawns that have really, the weeds have taken a good hold in there. Are there any types of ground covers that can be planted that propagate well and can choke out weeds? I probably understand that they can't get everything, but have you seen anything that really works at really choking out weeds?
For the ground covers, I haven't, but ground covers are not my area. Um, I have seen ground covers with weeds poking up because if the sun can find the hole in the ground cover, a weed will grow. So it may not be as bad. And if you get a thick enough ground cover, maybe like an Asiatic jasmine or something like that, it create enough of a canopy. But Lynn on video herself. I'm gonna guess she has an answer. That's why she's there.
So in David's program on ground covers, the one thing he talks about is getting that as clean as possible before you plant. To go ahead and take the area that you're going to turn into an area of ground cover, kill the weeds any way you need to get that clean. Um, Go ahead and water that area, kind of turn it a little bit, let those weeds come to the surface and sprout, kill them again. And then that way you're starting with a really clean bed. Then go through the process of planting your ground cover. And it's got a head start on getting to spread before those weeds can come up. You're going to need to weed probably for the first couple of years until you get a good coverage of the ground cover, and then they will canopy or shade out that area, reducing the number of weeds that come up.
Okay, super. Thank you.
All
Anybody
right.
else?
What else you got?
You must have answered all their questions, Bill.
Wow. Favorite Doobie the Brothers tune. No, just kidding.
Oh.
I don't want to
Fred
start
wants
a
to know what kind of tools do you use to weed? Weeding tools.
Yeah, I should have gotten a picture of it. It's sort of like a pickaxe thing.
I- So you can use hand trowels. You can use a hori hori, which is kind of my boys call it the weapon. You'll have to look it up, but it's got a shape that where you're going this way, and it's got a wicked kind of curved point, and it digs down and pops up. I also have the traditional, what I call a dandelion weeder, which penetrates really deep when you go down, and then you helps pop that as much of that root out of the ground.
And one thing that somebody, I don't remember who, turned me on to, Lynn, it may have been you, was a hula hoe a few years ago.
Yeah.
And you might want to look that up. That has really helped me for some hard to get to weed roots.
Especially the very shallow root, that hula hoe has kind of a blade and it just is going right under the soil surface. So if you've got perennials or vegetables or whatever with roots right in there, this is just going to nip the very top of the soil and take those the weeds off. So with the hula hoe, the catch is get them while they're young, get them while they're small. The
Good point.
weeds.
Good point. Gail, you have a question?
Well, is Bill back or not?
Well, unless he disappeared. Bill, did we lose you? Or are you still here?
He froze, so he may be signing back in again.
Oh, give
Yeah,
him a minute.
I'm on my yeah, I'm on my I'm on my
Okay.
phone.
Oh,
He's here.
there was in the pictures of the weeds, there's a weed I have a lot of in my yard, and I wanted to know what it was, but that's okay. I'll do a search to try to find out what it is.
Well, dig it up and put a double bag and bring it to the class Wednesday.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, 'cause
Take a look at it.
it has tons of little seeds, and so I pull them and I put them directly in the trash. I don't
Okay.
I'm trying to kind of get a handle on it, but okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. So where was I before we got cut off last time? Must have been incredibly important. The internet couldn't handle
It was what was your favorite weeding tool?
Oh, so the pickaxe thing, because because I'm like 90 years old and sort of, to dig it with a shovel. And I sit down to pull weeds. And I got to stand up again and sit down. After about 3 or 4 of those, my heart says, get out the defibrillator. So I will sit on the ground and I use that pickaxe thing and I will dig up the area. I'll loosen the soil so that I want to feel that weed come out of the ground. I want to feel the roots come out because there's something satisfying about it, like, I beat you. As opposed to when it breaks off, I'm thinking, oh man, I should have dug a little deeper. So I like loosening that soil as much as I possibly can, and then slowly pulling that weed out, make sure I have all the roots, and then I joyfully cast it into the fire and watch it burn. So that's what it's like a pickaxe. Sometimes a trowel, but you hit heavy parts of the clay soil, it just doesn't work. So I just use that and just kind of hack away at it. I'll try and remember to bring that to class next week, and they may not let me in the office. Hey, is that a weapon? It's my gardening tool.
And if y'all have a favorite garden tool, bring it to the next Zoom. We can hold them up and talk a little bit about what our favorite tools are and what it is about it that you like. Whether it's the ergonomics, whether it's does the job it's supposed to do really well, and it'll give us some ideas to put on our Christmas list for this year.
What I found is the best when it comes to mosquitoes, which is really an issue. The best way to deal with mosquitoes is to have my wife standing next to me, because they will attack her like crazy and they'll leave me alone. She doesn't appreciate that, but I do, and she doesn't find it very funny either. But it works, and she's over here about to throw something at me. But it's true about me. So anyway, yeah. So I guess I could jokingly say that my favorite gardening tool is somebody else doing it, but I like getting out there and mess with the weeds.
Any other final questions for Bill? All right. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Hope you have a great weekend. Remember, there's 2 chapters to read this week. I sent out chapter notes and I sent out the chapter questions for those of you who were absent yesterday. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good one.
Y'all take care.
All right,
Bye,
thank you.
everyone.
Bye.